The Detroit Lions have signed David Montgomery to a 3-year, $18 million deal. Figured I'd give a bit of a deep dive on, what I find very interesting about this move. So before I can talk about, do I think it's too much money, not enough, do I think it's a steal, all that stuff, first we have to talk about who he is as a player. So let's get into that. We'll do some stats, some film, and then I'll give my final thoughts on Montgomery as a player. But for example, these are his just box score statistics, and they don't seem that impressive. For some reason, Google's only showing the past 2 years on there. But you look at, they're kind of in line with what his career has been up until this point for his 4 years in the NFL with the Chicago Bears. Kind of an 800-yard guy, 1,000-yard guy around there for the most part of his career, averaging about 4 yards per carry, which doesn't feel like a ton, right? But of course, it's worth mentioning that yards per carry can often be an offensive line stat. There's a reason why some not great halfbacks will have like over 5 yards per carry, and then some really good ones will have under 4 yards per carry. I wouldn't read too much into this. If you look at his PFF grades, those are definitely better. Not great, but better. You see that he's been a kind of a consistent 70 grade guy, despite the fact that 3 out of 4 years he's been below 70, but not by much. 2021, a 69.8 grade. Did have the best grade of his career in 2020, interestingly enough, but for the most part has been kind of around a 70 grade player, which is still definitely a valuable piece. And I do have to say, he's one of those guys that I watch his tape, and his tape just feels better than whatever statistic you throw at me. Like something like this is a good example where it's going to be a designed run to the right, as in the right side of the screen. So, it's going to be to the offense's left. And they're actually going to set it up as though they're going to kind of run it towards the left side of the screen, but then eventually run towards the right. I think they're just trying to fool opposing Green Bay players. That's what they're trying to do here. Look at how when Justin Fields hands the ball off, Montgomery, hands it off to the, again, offense's right, but then runs to the offense's left and gets to a point where he's here facing Jair Alexander. And this is a real part of Montgomery's game, I would say, is that he gets out of bad situations. And not to say this is a bad situation, getting tackled here is still a fine run. But watch him avoid the tackle here and is able to get up and get a few more yards out of that play. He is someone who's just, quite frankly, hard to bring down. And that's, definitely something that's valuable. Feels like a big chunk of what the Lions have been trying to do in the Dan Campbell era is be tough to play against. Be annoying to have to deal with if you're a defense. And they already are annoying to play against, I would think. Even more so, adding a guy like Montgomery, who is definitely someone who can get around tackles. Like this one's another one where really, he's kind of a cornerback's nightmare in a lot of ways, especially because, it's already annoying enough that you have to just tackle as a corner. You don't want to tackle. You're there to cover and try to get interceptions and to talk trash. That's what they pay you for, not to make tackles. But watch how on this one, Fields is going to, pass the ball back, pitch the ball back to Montgomery. At this point, it's Eric Stokes now who has a shot at Montgomery, and it just, he just doesn't go down in these spots. Watch Stokes, kind of get a hand on him, and it feels like he barely even touched him. Again, Eric Stokes, not exactly known for being elite tackler, corner, or anything like that, but still, he's a corner who can tackle, but Montgomery kind of just shakes him off, and this is what he's kind of been known for in a ways with the Bears, and will be known for doing with the Lions, is just being able to move like this. Something like this is another example where it's going to be a designed run to the offense's right. You see, he's going to initially try to go towards the gap in between the right guard and right tackle. As you see, Fields is going to hand the ball off to Montgomery, who at this point doesn't really have any room to go. Kind of almost gets stuck right in between his own offensive linemen. So, okay, bit of a scramble situation, try to make something happen. You see he's going to peel back and get to this spot where, once again, not a good situation. Not really his fault, just ended up in a tough situation. But again, he gets himself out of tough situation. As you see, he is able to power through, and he is able to pick up, again, just extra yards, right? That's the value. We all wonder, what's the value of a running back? And it's a fair question to ask, because the reality is, offensive linemen, that's what matters more, is how the O-line blocked on a specific running play. That does, at least in my opinion, make more of an impact than just the running back themselves. That's how I view it. But on that play, you can clearly look at that and say, okay, a league average running back gets tackled right around the line of scrimmage, but Montgomery was able to gain around, I believe that's around 9 yards on that play. That's a pretty big swing, and even if you only do those a few times a game, there's still a ton of value in that. Again, something like this is another example where, it's not always the offensive line is completely sucking and Montgomery just making stuff happen. Of course, that's not the case. And in fact, if you're a Lions fan, I think part of you might say, okay, that's cool that you can break tackles and stuff like that, but our offensive line's pretty good. We don't need you to get out of bad situations as much. We kind of want to see what you do in, just solid situations, decent situations, not even the great ones. What about the okay situations? We'll watch how when Fields gives the ball to Montgomery, again, solid blocking scheme right here. He's able to get through the gap. And then when Packers try to tackle him, he's able to, again, keep running forward and pick up more yards. So while, yes, the Lions offensive line should be able to get him some bigger holes to run through, even when those holes start to close up, Montgomery will still be able to pick up more yards, I would at least assume. This is his contract details, for this, for the contract, for the next 3 years, what he's currently looking at. And, I don't think this is a bad contract necessarily. I never really have an issue with paying running backs, contrary to popular belief. I have an issue with paying running backs for a long term. That's why I hated the Ezekiel Elliott contract, because of how much term they gave him, not necessarily because of how much money per year they gave him. Running backs fall off a cliff quickly. They do. Even for a 26-year-old, you don't know how many years Montgomery has left in him, but you're only really on the hook for the next 2 years. You see the dead cap. Okay, if you cut him right now, it'd be $8 million. I don't know why you would sign him and then immediately cut him. You're keeping him for this year. And then for the 2024 year, if you cut him, it'd be a $6 million dead cap. So you're probably going to keep him for both of those next 2 years. And then in 2025, if you wanted to cut him, it'd just be $2.25 million in dead cap. Obviously, you don't want to cut him at all. You're hoping that he plays out the contract, but you want a contingency plan with this stuff. So just the $11 million guaranteed in a 3-year deal is certainly not so bad, and that's why I kind of like this contract. I do. I think that for Montgomery, he is someone who I expect to live up to the contract. I don't know exactly how well he's going to do in a different situation, because how could I? No one knows exactly how he's going to do in this different situation. It's, he's basically been in complete opposite situations for most of his career, which is part of what makes it a fascinating signing. But the reality is, you're a team that likes to run the ball. You're effective at running the ball. You have good offensive linemen who can run block. Why not get a good running back? That makes sense to me. I totally can see the logic behind it, and he's a very effective player. So again, you're not overpaying for someone. You're not giving him 5 years fully guaranteed or anything like that, which would be the concern. But again, running backs do have value, and while it's a bit high of a price to pay for a running back, it's not crazy high or anything. And again, there is value in running backs, so I don't really have an issue with this deal. And you even look at it, amazingly, his cap hit for this year is just $2.8 million. Just kind of, again, the cap, barely real. But yeah, that's kind of my thought on all of that stuff. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.